Well, this is Annie Hughes, and she's also part of the local color show here at Fine Eye. Good to see you, Annie. It's been a while.
Yes.
I'm so pleased to see your color in this show. It's really phenomenal.
Like what Brad said, I walked in here 2 days ago to see what the show looked like, and it was like, oh my gosh, our colors are just absolutely the same. We go different directions, but it's like we're in the same palette.
Yes.
And James had a very good idea, James and Gail, when they brainstormed this.
They sure did, yes. Yes, and that was a comment that Brad made too, also, that, James, we interviewed him last month.
Yes, I saw his interview.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was great.
Well, thanks. Well, your work. Let's talk about this, because now you're doing collage integrated with your lively pastels and color and messages. Now, it seems that this particular one right here, does it have a
Rhino,
name?
yes.
The Rhino?
Yeah. Rhino's carrying the quilt.
Oh, the Rhino's carrying the quilt. Well, I know you used to be a quilter too, didn't you?
That's right. So my art is, it's always about, it's the stitchery days, it's the quilting days, a lot of texture. And I think that's why I gravitated to collage. About a little over a year ago, I took a collage class from Lynn.
Oh, yes, Lynn Slade, yes.
And Lynn and I are very, very different.
Yes.
She's very engineering and...
right. Yeah.
And so anyway,
I knew freedom in your work.
I knew I wanted to be different, and but I was able to take what I learned from her, and but it also just brought back the excitement of when I began as an artist back in the early 70s, and in those days it was in fiber.
Yes.
And I have been a fiber artist for 20
I love
years.
Fiber. And I see here, because you've done some beautiful pots, flower pots, and this to me looks like you've incorporated your flower pot.
Well, it does, yeah. Each one of these paintings starts out as something different. Maybe I'll do a little bit of a sketch, but not much. It's mostly in my head. And actually, Rhino was supposed to be a sweater.
Oh.
And
I can see where it started.
And the paintings just take on their own strength, and they become who they want to be.
That's true.
And I finally just gave in and said, you're an animal.
They have a life of their own, don't they, those paintings?
They do. So, and the birds up at the top, that was supposed to have been a dragonfly.
Oh.
And then all of a sudden, I saw individual birds in it, and it was like, oh, okay.
Yes, there's so much in it, and yet it's simple, but yet it's complex.
Right.
Yes, I always like that. And what about this one?
The Rabbit Cafe.
Oh, the Rabbit Cafe. I love your titles. You always have clever titles.
So anyway, 2 rabbits and a mystery figure on the left.
Yes.
Which...
well, it's all a mystery to me.
Who might be me. I might be with the rabbits at the cafe.
Well, this is you, because it comes from inside you. Nobody else, it's not anybody else but Annie Hughes.
Yeah, true.
I remember when you told me you wanted to change your last name to Hughes,
H-U-E-S, yes.
Because you use so many Hughes. So.
Right.
So that's a good name for you.
And sometimes I do sign as H-U-E-S.
That's great.
So.
And we have some over here on this corner.
Sure.
Where right next to, you both complement each other, your art and Brad's art is here in the corner.
Well, so I'd love to begin with talking about the one on the far left,
Okay.
Robin's Spirit House.
Oh, yes.
And that was begun. I was at an artist retreat up at Tahoe last August, and the evening that I heard that Robin Williams had died, it was like, oh my gosh, I have to do a painting.
Yes.
And so I started the Spirit House, and Spirit Houses are very prevalent in Southeast Asia, and it's how families continue with their ancestors when they've passed on, and they have these they look like birdhouses in the back or in the front yard, and so they take food and special things out every day to the person who's died, and that's the way they keep them in their lives. So this is probably about the 5th Spirit House that I've painted, and I know you remember Josie.
Yes.
Not that you had met her, but you were with me the day I
yes.
got the phone call.
Yes.
And so after Josie died, one of my ways to just, move on with that was to paint a spirit house.
It does help if
Yeah.
you have some way to channel that grief.
Yeah.
Yes. And you do it very colorfully, so it gives a rise to their spirit. Right.
Right.
Yes. And I know you have quite a history, and too bad we don't have enough time to discuss all of it, but your experience in Laos. Mm-hmm. And is this one of the influences in this painting in the middle?
Yes, it is. And that's, I call that the temples in the Luang Prabang, which is the cultural capital of Laos, and many, many Buddhist temples. So that, and that definitely comes out of my time there, and I taught English there for 2 years to government officials, and then also to a group of children at an orphanage. And it's actually the children at the orphanage that just grabbed my heart, and that was where that was where I became a painter. Yeah. Because before I left, I was in an interview for the job at Stanford, and asked the question, what will you do when you're halfway around the world and you are so homesick? And I just sat up and said, I'm taking my paints and my sketchbook and my journal, and I'll be okay. And it's like I made that statement, and I walked into it. And that was where I became a painter.
Yes.
So
because prior to that, it was your textured. Yeah, your
right, my quilts.
Fabrics. Yes.
Yeah.
And these are these a grouping for a reason, or are they separate?
They're a grouping because James loves the 3 towards the bottom.
Yeah.
But
so you want to integrate the top one. Tell me a little about the top one, because it is different from anything else I've seen in the past.
That was a technique that came out of Lynn's class. That there were definite design strategies, and that was one, and it was one that I had just a huge amount of difficulty with. And yet, I finally found the 2 figures in there, and could make it into a story.
Because I had never seen you use black in my life, or wear black. So,
well, and again,
I found some in there, and I went, what?
Exactly. And that was one of the exercises in the class, that we had to work in black.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well.
Just like years ago when I was quilting and I was in a workshop, and we had to work all week in muslin and white thread, no color. And by the second day, I thought, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. I am so dependent on color, but what it did for me was I could finally start seeing shape because there was no distraction of the color. So,
Yes, that's an interesting.
so the flying creatures on the left and at the bottom, those represent, well, one of them is called a dragonfly house. But they really represent these bugs that come to Laos once a year in early spring. And, you know, in there they look like they're giant. They're actually just itty bitty little things that come through. If you have screens on your window, they'll come through. They're attracted to light. Hundreds, thousands come into your house at night, and there's nothing you can do about it, except when you get up in the morning and you look at the floor, there are all these wings that are on the floor because the geckos have eaten them all during the night.
Oh my gosh!
And yeah, my house would have all these flying things, and then there would be geckos going up and down the wall.
Oh, I love them.
And then in the morning, it was wings. So
Oh, so you have wings.
I have wings.
They're very impressive wings. They grew.
Yeah.
Well, Annie, I wish we had more time for you because your experiences and the way you didn't integrate them in your work is phenomenal.
Well, thank you very much.
And it's good to
Appreciate it.
see you.
Yes, good to see you too.
How about a hug?
Absolutely.
Okay, careful.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.